number of international envoys were part of the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg. For South Africa, this was an enormous opportunity to champion the cause of Africa and other developing regions.
We've often been a continent that has been relegated to the back, and I was quite frontal in saying that this is the time. The G20 gives us, as Africans, the moment to put our issues on the global agenda. And I do believe that we've got a cohort of countries in the G20 and those that will be invited who will be willing to listen to Africa's story, to Africa's narrative, which will not only be expressed by South Africa, but by the African Union itself as a member, as well as by those countries on our continent that we are going to invite. And believe you me, we are going to invite quite a few of them to come to be part of particularly the Leaders' Summit.
But the top diplomat of one of the powerful economies in the world, the United States, Marco Rubio, did not attend. Instead, Washington, D.C. was represented by a second-in-command at the diplomatic mission in Pretoria.
I spoke to President Trump soon after he was elected and congratulated him and informed him or reminded him that we are going to be having the G20 here and they are going to have theirs the following year, so we will hand over to them. And we spoke a bit about that. We also spoke about a number of South Africans who he holds in high regard, particularly in the golfing field, and he being a better golfer than I am, he said, well, then maybe when I come, we should play golf together.
Geopolitical issues featured high on the agenda, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the situation in Gaza.
Here I am in South Africa at the G20, and it's very good to see right across the nations represented here solidarity and support for Ukraine, and of course a desire to see peace, but a negotiated peace with Ukraine at its heart and on terms acceptable to Vladimir Zelensky. I look forward to the meeting that my Prime Minister will have with President Trump later on next week.
Concerning the ongoing conflict and wars in Africa, the Middle East and Europe, the meeting reiterated that all states must act in a manner consistent with the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Affirmed that all parties in conflicts must comply with their obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Guided by these principles, there was agreement to support all efforts towards a just peace in Ukraine, Palestine, Sudan, the DRC, and other major conflicts across the globe.
It was also an opportunity for foreign affairs ministers to discuss pressing issues.
We should also recognize that in a polarized global situation, our two countries have worked hard to preserve and protect the G20 as an institution. This in itself testifies to the importance of international cooperation.
Other African nations are also part of the discussions.
We would rather that Africa and the African Union and other platforms that are owned by Africa and African countries be utilized in solving these problems. And when we prefer solutions that others outside of Africa support those solutions, they tend to be more effective as opposed to exogenous solutions to African problems. So we just concluded recently Peace and Security Council meeting where we deliberated on the conflict in the Sudan and Eastern Congo. So we expect that other members of the G20 and others outside of Africa would support the solutions that we're preferring. Certainly we need them to play a role, but let the solutions organically emanate from Africa as opposed to being applied from the outside, because we know where it hurts the most.
Over 130 meetings will be held across the country, and this will culminate in November when the G20 Leaders Summit will be hosted in Johannesburg. Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.